to start dialogue, peaceful dialogue. We have to live together again, and we have to resettle the displaced person in their respective places. And children has to go to schools. People have to do their works. So I would like to appeal to the concern to stop violence with the coming of the Christmas and the New Year. It is my earnest appeal from my side and from the government side as well as from the people of Manipur side.
External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on Monday reached Moscow on a 5-day visit to meet the Russian leadership. Jaishankar will hold talks with the counterpart Sergei Lavrov and discuss various bilateral and global issues. He'll meet Russia's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Industry and Trade Denis to discuss matters related to economic engagement. He will also hold talks with his Russian counterpart Lavrov for discussion on bilateral, multilateral and international issues. Right on your screens is Jaishankar's Twitter account. Platform X there, he has written an open and forward-looking interaction with leading representatives of the Russian strategic community. Spoke about the importance of rebalancing and the emergence of multipolarity. Exchanged views on how India-Russia ties will develop in that framework. Also discussed connectivity, multilateralism, big power competition and regional conflicts. Geopolitics and strategic convergence will always keep India-Russia ties on a positive trajectory. Two drone-dropped packets containing arms and cash were seized in a joint operation by the army and the police from a village, in fact, near the line of control in Akhnur sector. The packets, believed to have been dropped by Pakistani drones for subversive activities, were in fact noticed lying in an open field in Channi. That's a village there. Now the army and the police launched a joint operation immediately, and the packets were opened with the help of a bomb disposal squad. We slip it a quick break now. We'll be right back with lots more on the other side. Do stay with us.
This was intended to be a terrorist spectacular without precedent.
The plan was to bomb two Air India passenger aircrafts simultaneously.
There was a loud explosion and the whole plane just vanished.
The police dropped the ball, the intelligence officers dropped the ball, and the politicians dropped the ball.
It was a conspiracy that destroyed my life. It destroyed 331 lives.
News is now content. Just stream it. Download the world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus, ahead of the curve. The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
It's been 81 days since Hamas's first attack on Israel. Since then, nearly 21,000 Gazans have lost their lives in the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Let's get you the latest update from the war zone. There now, Egypt has proposed a three-phase plan to end war between Israel and Hamas. That is what reports are stating. At least 250 people have been killed in 24 hours in central Gaza. This is according to the Gaza Health Ministry, ready to encourage Palestinians in Gaza to leave the enclave. That is what Netanyahu has said. He has also visited Gaza and vowed a long fight in Israel-Hamas War. Now there, Netanyahu heckled by families of hostages during a Knesset session. Pope has also called for ceasefire and hostage release in Christmas Day message. 20,674 Palestinians have been killed in the Gaza war so far. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to keep up the fight against Hamas terrorists on Monday, while Palestinians mourned over 100 people who the Gaza officials said were killed overnight in Israeli airstrikes. Take a look.
The Israeli government on Monday released footage of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu clad in a helmet and Kevlar vest, arriving by tank to greet soldiers inside the Gaza Strip. He tells them the war is not over. It will end in total victory, no less than that. His remarks come after reports that the leaders of Hamas, the Palestinian Islamist group that governed Gaza, rejected an Egyptian proposal that they relinquish power in the enclave in exchange for a permanent ceasefire. That's according to two Egyptian security sources who spoke to Reuters on Monday. An official from Hamas later denied what the sources said about the talks. Fighting in Gaza erupted after Palestinian fighters rampaged through Israeli communities on October 7th, killing 1,200 and taking hundreds of captives. Israel retaliated with a full-blown invasion aimed at eradicating Hamas and bringing the captives home. Punishing airstrikes and ground maneuvers have transformed cities into wastelands, and Gaza's health ministry said last week the death toll had topped 20,000. Thousands more are believed buried beneath the rubble. The last 48 hours have been particularly deadly. At least 70 people were killed in an Israeli airstrike on the Markazi refugee camp in the middle of the Gaza Strip. A warning to viewers, this video includes graphic images of death and destruction. Ibrahim Mohammed Al-Haj Yusuf lost his wife and 4 children in the attack. He told Reuters, quote, "My wife and children are still trapped inside. I only managed to uncover my eldest son, Mohammed. What fault did they have? Why did this happen to them? It's not their fault. The world watches us die and being slaughtered. Are these the resistance? They are innocent children." The Israeli army said it was reviewing the report of the Markazi strike and was committed to minimizing harm to civilians. Israel says Hamas operates in densely populated areas and uses civilians as human shields, which Hamas denies. Egypt and Qatar have shuttled between Hamas and Israel in an effort to reach some kind of a ceasefire that might provide for the return of hostages and the delivery of humanitarian aid. The Egyptian sources said that Hamas had rejected offering any concessions beyond the possible release of more hostages in exchange for a permanent ceasefire. Israel says it would consider a temporary pause in fighting in exchange for prisoners, but it would not consider a permanent ceasefire that leaves Hamas in control of Gaza. The footage released by Israel showed Netanyahu glad-handing with combat soldiers who pledge until the end. But back in Parliament that day, he faced heckling from some hostages' families. They chanted, "Now, now, now," and demanding that he pursue the release of captives at all costs. Netanyahu responded that an earlier ceasefire, which resulted in the release of some 100 captives, would not have happened without military pressure on Hamas. More than 100 Israelis are believed still held hostage in Gaza.
Explaining the last bit furthermore, there the families of hostages gathered at the main gate of the Israeli Defense Ministry complex in Tel Aviv on Monday, awaiting the security cabinet ministers to plead for the rescue of their family members. The protesters laid out hourglasses indicating that time is running out for each of the hostages still in Hamas captivity. On Monday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also stated that Israel would not succeed in freeing the remaining hostages held in Gaza without applying military pressure. Meanwhile, family members of the hostages sat in the chamber looking down on the premier, holding posters of their relatives behind the glass and intermittently interrupting him.
פגשתי אותה בנסיבות בכמה פעמים. הצגות כאן. הם זקוקים לתרופות האלה, חלק ממש זקוקים להם, להצלת חיים. ואמרתי לה, קחי את הארגז הזה, קחי אותו, תעבירי אותו. אומר לי, אותו הדבר, הגשש חלם, וחברו עוז. חייבים להמשיך. ודברים דומים אני שומע מבני המשפחות של הנופלים אמיצי הלב. ובכן לכם, לוחמי צה"ל, ולכם המשפחות הדואבות וקרובי החטופים, אני אומר גם מעל הבמה הזאת, אנחנו לא עוצרים ולא נעצור עד לניצחון, כי אין לנו ארץ אחרת ואין לנו דרך אחרת. אני רוצה להגיד לכם, חברי הכנסת ומשפחות יקרות, לא היינו מצליחים לשחרר עד כה למעלה מ100 מן החטופים בלי הלחץ הצבאי. כל הלחצים שאנחנו מפעילים, המדיניים, המודיעיניים, מאמצים רבים אחרים, לא היו צולחים בלי הלחץ הצבאי. ואנחנו לא נצליח לשחרר את כל החטופים בלי לחץ צבאי. לחץ צבאי, לחץ מבצעי, לחץ מדיני. ולכן דבר אחד לא נעשה. לא נפסיק להילחם. חטיבה.
אלוף משנה סדיר.
כן, הוא אלוף משנה סדיר, זה אני יודע.
On Monday, the Israeli military released footage of strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, showing IAF fighter jets hitting a series of locations. Take a look. In a statement, the IDF mentioned that they targeted military compounds and operational infrastructure. Switching our focus away from Israel-Hamas, the A340 aircraft with 303 Indian passengers that was grounded in France over suspected human trafficking finally landed in Mumbai in the early hours of Tuesday. The aircraft was headed to Nicaragua but was grounded on a technical halt last week by the authorities at the Vatry airport in France. The flight was headed from Dubai to Nicaragua. The Indian embassy there coordinated with the French authorities to fly the aircraft back to Mumbai. The plane was grounded after a tip-off that the airline was involved in human trafficking. The anonymous tip led to the French authorities swinging into action and opening an investigation. India was given consular access to the 303 passengers aboard. We now slip it a quick break. We'll be right back with lots more on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Currently, the industry is facing a lot of challenges as far as demand is concerned. Basically, the US markets has slowed down because of high inflation.
So obviously, diamonds being a dream product, something which doesn't have a utility value or is seen as a luxury. So that obviously goes off your shopping list. That's the first item that will go off your shopping list, especially in recessionary trends.
That lab-grown diamonds are not mined and they do away with the entire mining. So they save up on all the environmental damage that is associated with mining and of course, the mining cost, which is why they're even more affordable.
People that is impacted by all these recessions are the artisans, are the people who work in this industry, right? But I think lab-grown diamond has allowed them to actually use their skills in the same product.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9+. Download now.
जानना है तो देखिए, समझना है तो सुनिए, सीखना है तो पूछिए, और कमाना है तो खरीदिए। जानकारी, सलाह और निवेश सब एक ही सुपर ऐप पर। पैसे का सवाल है तो जवाब है मनी 9। आजादी पैसे की, अभी डाउनलोड करें।
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा।
There is certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
The scale of the attack was something that we were surprised at. David Hadley was a double agent. The Americans did not want him to be fully exposed, so all that he probably shared with the Americans was not shared with us in terms of intelligence. If we had that, I'm sure that we would have been able to deal with the situation far better.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Welcome back. Donald Trump has appealed to a Washington, D.C. court to dismiss charges related to subverting the 2020 election. In a filing on the 23rd of December, Trump's lawyers argued that he is immune from liability for actions taken while serving as the president. This move follows the U.S. Supreme Court's decision not to expedite a request by the special counsel Jack Smith to consider the question of presidential immunity from prosecution. The filing maintains that Trump was acting in an official capacity to ensure election integrity and therefore is immune from criminal prosecution for official acts. The mastermind behind the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks, Hafiz Saeed, has launched a new political front organization, the Pakistan Markazi Muslim League, fielding candidates for various national and provincial assembly constituencies in Pakistan's upcoming 8th of February general elections. Saeed, founder of Lashkar-e-Taiba, has been in jail since 2019 for terror finance convictions. PMML aims to establish an Islamic welfare state contesting under the symbol of a chair. PMML President Khalid Masood Sindhu, in a video message, expressed the party's intent to serve the people and emphasized their goal of making Pakistan an Islamic welfare state. Sindhu, a candidate for NA 130 Lahore, denied any link between PMML and Hafiz Saeed's outfit, despite Saeed's son, Talha Saeed, contesting from Lahore's NA 127. The political face of JUD in 2018, Milli Muslim League, had failed to secure seats in the election. There, the PMML emerges for the 2024 polls due to the ban on MML. Hafiz Saeed is a UN-designated terrorist with a USD 10 million bounty from the US, leads JUD. The front organization for LET is also responsible for the 2008 Mumbai attacks, that claimed the lives of 166 people. Following the opposition protest over election results in Serbia, 8 policemen were injured and 38 individuals were detained, as confirmed by the head of the Serbian police. The police reported that officers guarding the city hall refrained from intervening for 3 hours, hoping the violence would not escalate. Protesters eventually broke windows and glass at the main entrance of the city hall, prompting the police to use pepper spray to disperse them. The opposition, led by the centre-left alliance Serbia Against Violence, announced that protests would continue, with students planning to block traffic in the Serbian capital. In the recent snap parliamentary election, the ruling Serbian Progressive Party secured 46.72% of the votes, according to preliminary results from the State Election Commission. Serbia Against Violence came in second with 23.56%, followed by the Socialist Party of Serbia with 6.56%. Missing Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny has been located at a prison colony above the Arctic Circle. This nearly 3 weeks after he was last seen. News of Navalny's sighting has been propounded by his own associates. Navalny's spokesperson said on X, formerly Twitter, that Navalny was located in a prison colony in the town of Karp in the Yamalo-Nenetsek region, which is located about 2,000 kilometers northeast of Moscow. Navalny, the most prominent foe of Russian President Vladimir Putin, was handed a jail sentence of 19 years on charges of being involved in extremist activities. He had been serving his sentence in a prison located in central Russia, but he had been missing since the 6th of December after reports emerged Navalny had fever and had collapsed in his prison cell. A spokesperson from China's foreign ministry emphasized Beijing's unwavering commitment to safeguarding its territorial sovereignty and maritime rights. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning asserted that China remains resolute in its stance, yet expressed readiness to engage in negotiations and consultations with the Philippines to address maritime issues. The comments were prompted by Chinese state media commentary published on the same day, accusing the Philippines of relying on US support to provoke China continually. Recent months have seen heightened tensions between Beijing and Manila, with both sides exchanging accusations regarding incidents in the South China Sea. This includes allegations that China rammed a ship carrying the Philippine Armed Forces Chief of Staff earlier in the month.
首先，中方维护自身领土主权和海洋权益的决心坚定不移。一段时间以来，菲律宾利用仁爱礁等问题频繁挑起事端，并拉拢域外势力介入，中方不得不采取必要的措施，坚决应对。同时，中方对话的大门始终敞开，我们愿意同菲方通过谈判协商妥善处理涉海问题，希望菲方悬崖勒马，不要在错误的道路上越走越远。
Britain's King Charles III with the royal family attended a Christmas service at St. Mary, a church on, in fact, an estate. King Charles was accompanied by Queen Consort Camilla and son Prince William with Catherine and their children. Other attendees included Prince Anne and Timothy Lawrence, Prince Edward, Duke of Edinburgh, and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, along with Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. On Christmas Day, about 24 resilient German swimmers participated in their annual tradition of taking a dip in a chilly Berlin lake, describing the experience as chilly but delightful. The Berlin SEALs, a group of winter swimmers, gathers at Orankasi Lake from mid-September to the end of April, embracing the cold water. Despite this year's dip being cool, it was noted by some seasoned swimmers to be less icy than in previous years. With Berlin temperatures about 10 degrees Celsius on Christmas Day, swimmers could enter the water directly without the need to clear ice chunks. Despite the cold, swimmers emerged from the lake with smiles, expressing that it was both wet and cold and wonderful. It's established in the 1980 in East Berlin. The Berlin SEALs, now with 157 members, ranging from 12 to almost 90 years old, continue their unique tradition of cold water swimming. In his Christmas message, Pope Francis expressed concern about children dying in wars, referring to them as the little Jesuses of today. He criticized Israeli strikes in Gaza, describing them as reaping an appalling harvest of innocent civilians. The Pope also condemned the October 7 attack on Israel by Hamas terrorists as abominable there and called for the release of remaining hostages. He emphasized the need to resolve the Palestinian question through dialogue. Additionally, he called for an end to conflicts in various regions, including Ukraine, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, while defending the rights of migrants.
May it come in Israel and Palestine, where war is devastating the lives of those people. I embrace them all, particularly the Christian communities of Gaza, the parish of Gaza, and the entire Holy Land. My heart grieves for the victims of the abominable attack of October 7 lost, and I reiterate my urgent appeal for the liberation of those still being held hostage. I plead for an end to the military operations with the appalling harvest of innocent civilian victims, and call for a solution to the desperate humanitarian situation by an opening to the provision of humanitarian aid. May there be an end to the fueling of violence and hatred, and may the Palestinian question come to be resolved through sincere and persevering dialogue between the parties, sustained by strong political will and the support of the international community. Brothers and sisters, let us pray for peace in Palestine and Israel.
There, the Pope, while condemned the October 7 attack on Israel by Hamas as abominable, he also said that whatever Israel is, in fact, the Israeli strikes, to be precise, in Gaza, he described them as reaping an appalling harvest of innocent civilians. Amidst the backdrop of war, Palestinian Christians gathered in a Gaza church for a Christmas Eve service. On Christmas Eve, Pope Francis lamented that Jesus' message of peace was being overshadowed by the futile logic of war in the very land of his birth. The Gaza Strip, besieged by Israel since the 7th of October, has suffered extensive damage, particularly after Hamas terrorists' actions in southern Israel, resulting in casualties and hostages. According to authorities in Hamas-ruled Gaza, over 20,400 people have been confirmed killed during Israel's military campaign, with thousands more believed to be dead under the rubble. A drone video showed Italian fire brigades marking Christmas with a dazzling display of lights and sirens early. Video released by Italian fire brigades known as Vigili del Fuoco showed dozens of fire trucks flashing sirens and lights, turning the vehicles into festive beacons. The brief but dazzling celebration included a crane lifting a cage of light. Take a look. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of the Bulletin. Thank you very much for watching. You have a blessed day ahead. This is me, Neha, signing off.
Hi Shannon, Air India 182, good morning. Air India 182, good morning. Squawk to 2005, cleared for London. Air India 182, Shannon. Air India 182, Shannon. Air India 182, Shannon.
I'm Sanjay Lazar. I lost my entire family in the Air India 182 Kanishka. This is, the story of my life. I failed my 12th standard, and that happened in June of 1985. And we were all to go on a holiday to Toronto, and I got my results 2 days before our departure, and they wanted to cancel that trip. The shock and horror of me failing upset my family no end. My dad didn't want to go. My stepmom didn't want to go. I said, no, please go. And I'll submit my papers for evaluation and I'll stay behind. It's only 10 or 12 days. It's not that I'm a 3-year-old child or something like that. My dad was obviously the in-flight supervisor. He worked in Air India for 24 years before that, and he was operating that flight along with a lot of friends, and they were all taking their families along.
5,000 years of elegant living with it, George's mind took off as well.
Air India 182, a Boeing 747 named after Emperor Kanishka, was on its way to London's Heathrow after a brief stop at the Mirabel Airport in Montreal, Canada. Carrying 329 passengers and 22 crew members, the flight had originated in Toronto and would make stop at London before embarking on its final journey to Delhi and Mumbai. It had barely entered Irish airspace when Air India 182 suddenly disappeared from the radar.
There was a loud explosion and the whole plane just vanished.
Where the air traffic controller at Shannon Airport in Ireland, as the plane approached the Irish coast on its way to Heathrow, as he tries to get hold of 182, and he says, 182, Shannon.
182, Shannon. Air India 182, Shannon.
You have him on radio? No. Negative, came the answer.
329 people died, out of which 268 were Canadian citizens, mostly of Indian origin. There were also 24 Indian nationals.
One guy actually came and said, my condolences, I'm sorry. And that's when it struck me, that something may be wrong. I was not going for, to locate them or meet them. I was going to, bring bodies back.
They didn't even have a speck on the radar. The plane was blown to pieces.
But what exactly happened to Air India 182 and why? The answer lies in India's Operation Blue Star.
Khalistani radical Bhindranwale turns Golden Temple into a fortress.
Indian Army brings in tanks, clears Golden Temple of radicals.
4 months after Operation Blue Star, PM Indira Gandhi assassinated.
Barely a year after Operation Blue Star and nearly 7 months after Indira Gandhi's assassination, Sikh terror outfit Babbar Khalsa was baying for India's blood to seek revenge for the killing of Bhindranwale.
50,000 तोते नौजवान शहीद हो चुका है. खालिस्तान जिंदाबाद बन के रहेगा.
And this time, their target was the very Maharaja of Indian skies, Air India. The plan was to bomb 2 Air India passenger aircrafts simultaneously in 2 parts of the world, in London's Heathrow Airport and Japan's Narita Airport, which could have caused an uproar and brought global attention to the Khalistani issue.
But the one that was intended to be loaded onto another Air India plane when it reached Japan at Tokyo Airport, Narita Airport near Tokyo, that got jostled by the baggage handlers as they moved it to the Air India plane. And it blew up, killed 2 baggage handlers and severely injured 4 others.
Kanishka, Air India 182, was delayed by 97 minutes out of Toronto and Montreal. Had it not been delayed, this aircraft would have landed at Heathrow. So they would have plotted to blow up 2 aircrafts on ground with passengers at 2 airports, very busy airports. Imagine the destruction. So it was a well thought out, carefully planned operation. There is no doubt that the Canadians messed up big time. They had recordings of one guy telling the other guy, we are preparing a bomb, literally.
Air India had sent a telex to the Canadian police authorities saying that there is a possibility of luggage, the explosives carried with time device in the luggage. So please check all the baggage of all Air India flights leaving from Canada.
That telex arrived at a bored RCMP station in Toronto. They said, oh, here go the Indians again. Yet another complaint and warnings. They're just trying to get more free security, they said. They claimed they conveyed it to the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, but in fact they did not.
That led to an appointment of, in 1986, I think, Justice Krupal Commission.
They went in the first year and they investigated, and they came to the distinct conclusion it was a bomb and there was no question about it. And by all accounts, it matched the bomb that was exploded in Narita.
Canadian people went on arguing that this has nothing to do with the bomb. This is something to do with your aircraft, maintenance. When Mrs. Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister, she requested the then Canadian Prime Minister, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, that is the father of Justin Trudeau, the present Prime Minister, to extradite Talvinder Singh Parmar, who had killed 2 police officers. He was in charge of the Babbar Khalsa in Punjab. Surprisingly, the senior Trudeau was the Prime Minister at that time. He said that the evidence is not adequate to extradite him to India.
Canada is back to shielding the same Khalistanis who were responsible for the killing of dozens of Canadians during the Kanishka bombing. Over the last decade, Canada has rejected 26 extradition requests for Khalistani terrorists received from India. Sikh terrorists have also received political support and Canadian security to conspire freely against India.
The Canadian Intelligence Agency certainly knew that Talvinder Parmar was a threat, and they knew very significantly that 3 weeks before the bombing, he had gone into the woods. He had made a trip over to see a friend of his, Inderjit Singh Rayat, the bomb maker, to test an explosion.
Now, where on earth do you see 2 militants going out into a forest to test fire a bomb and intelligence agents following him into the bomb test firing.
And they heard a loud explosion. But they didn't do anything about it.
And within 10 days or 15 days of the test firing of the bomb, my life was destroyed.
Talvinder Parmar and Ajab Singh Bagri had been to visit a prominent Gurdwara near the airport in Toronto. People who heard them were told not to fly on Air India as it would be unsafe to do so.
38 years later, designated Khalistani terrorist Gurpatwant Singh Pannu of Sikhs for Justice has copied the Babbar Khalsa model of intimidation and issued fresh threats.
सिख पंथ वालिओ 19 नवंबर तो बाद एयर इंडिया च सफर नहीं करना, जान नूं खतरा हो सकदा है।
And they were able to figure out pretty quickly who bombed Air India. What they couldn't do was come up with evidence. In the course of time, bizarrely, they erased the original wiretaps. They kept erasing them after the bombing, after they knew that the person on those tapes, Parmar, was the #1 suspect.
15 years after the bombing, in the year 2000, the RCMP arrested Vancouver-based businessmen Ripudaman Singh Malik and Ajay Singh, a mill worker from British Columbia, on a number of charges, including mass murder and conspiracy. 5 years later, both were acquitted due to the factual errors and credibility issues with the witnesses.
Yes, and I remember, that day, like it was yesterday, I lost my entire family all over again sitting in that courtroom. These guys were smirking at us because they obviously knew they'd threatened and killed everybody who could give witness against them.
This particular trial went on for 20 years. It is one of the longest trial proceedings with no sort of conclusive evidence about it. So because of that particular reason, in 2006, a commission under Justice John Major was appointed.
The next thing is the intelligence agencies wanted to hide what had been hidden for 20 years. Now, mind you, in those 20 years, nobody knew that they had tracked the bomb. Nobody knew that they had tracked the bomb maker. Nobody knew that they had recordings of these guys talking about it. CSIS sent redacted messages, recordings, files to the judge, and he resigned. He said, "I'm walking out of this." When he got all the unredacted files, that's when the story came up.
So he said that this particular policy was to protect them from any finding that the liability or obligation to compensate the families of the victim. They knew very well that something had gone wrong, and then they protected their own, the Prime Minister's office and others.